Hello, Year Sixes. It is a new week and there is more maths to do. Hooray! I hope that you enjoyed last week. There was some cool stuff at the end of last week. I liked the Pythagoras malarkey that you had. I hope that that went well. I know that some of that square number sort of things, remember square numbers? The Year Fives are doing it this week, multiplying a number by itself. And you probably found that when you drew your triangles yourself, if you did your squares and you tested them, they were slightly off. That's probably because of your measurements. But don't worry about that. Maybe you found some cool Pythagorean triples. Who knows? That's an interesting thing to look at. This week is just completely different. We've got two things now we got this week, and we're starting with fractions, decimals, and percentages, and focusing on their equivalents. And then tomorrow, I don't think I'm going to make a video for tomorrow, but tomorrow you're using that equivalence to find answers to interesting questions about discount and that sort of thing. So today we're just reminding ourselves that fractions, decimals, and percentages are equivalent. They can mean exactly the same thing. So you can see here's a big square. Hopefully you've already spotted that there are 100 squares in this square. And so you should be able to tell me what fraction of the square, this little nice square that's coloured in, is. What fraction is it, Year Sixes? Yes, it is 1/100th. How can we write that as a decimal? What's 1/100th as a decimal? The same. It means the same thing, doesn't it? We could say it's 100th of the square. We could say it's 0.01 of this whole square. That is 100th. Now, the cool thing about hundredths and tenths is we just call them that. So that's a bonus. But also remember, 1/100 is 0.01. What about a percentage then? All right, what about a percentage? What percentage of the square is this? Well, there are 100 squares. And remember, percent means out of 100. Hopefully, you've had that drilled into you enough times during your schooling career that you remember by now. So you should know that this is 1 out of 100. It is 1%. 1/100th is the same as 1%, which is the same as 0.01. All of these things mean the same, okay? So if you see a sum saying something times 0.01, you could do lots of different things. You could find 1% of it, you could divide it by 100, or you could times it by 0.01 if you had a calculator. So it depends on how you want to do it, but it is important to know that these things mean the same. Cool. There's a few more. We're going to run through this really fast because you're super clever. Fraction, 1/10, do you think? Yeah, a tenth, isn't it? 10 of them out of 100, 10/100ths, or 1/10. Decimal, well, we know what a tenth is, so that's a bonus, isn't it? 0.1. Percentage. Hopefully you've got those things, all right? And you can express it as either of these two things, remembering that in general, when writing fractions, we attempt, if we can, to simplify, all right? Here's a few more. Fractions, decimals, percentages. 20 out of 100, so 20/100ths, 20%, or instead of 20/100ths, 2/10, or boom, 1/5, and it means 0.2. Okay, great. Sorry, I'll just go back there actually, shouldn't have gone forward, but this is useful to know. 1/5 is the same as 0.2, which is the same as 20%. You might just remember that, and if you do, good. Also, remembering that 1/5 is the same as 2/10ths helps us to remember that 1/5 is the same as 0.2, all right, which is the same as 20%. Okay, so sometimes it's easier to go from the unsimplified fraction, 20/100ths, 20%, 2/10ths, 0.2. When we express it as a fraction, however, it is useful to show the simplest fraction. Great, here's some more, super easy. Everybody's happy with this. You can even just look at it and go, oh, I know what that is. It's half, it's 50%, it's 0.5. All right, remember, half, most common error, the thing I see most often when I say decimal equivalent of a half, people write 0.2. We've already done that one, so it can't be that, can it? And actually, it's 5/10, not 2/10. Just because there's a 2 in the denominator does not mean there has to be a 2 somewhere in the decimal, all right? You need to think, what is that fraction the same as? Not, oh, what sort of numbers can I see? Let's just make some numbers up. Okay, so half is 0.5. Great. How about this? I just got to keep going backwards, man. Computer's doing funny things. You should be able to tell what fraction this is pretty quickly. Okay, now you could do that by counting the squares and get a very unsimple fraction, or you could just see it's a quarter, but it's also 25 squares, which, so a quarter, hopefully you're remembering a quarter is the same as 25%, same as 0.25, and so it is 25 hundredths. But remember, we're going to try and have simple fractions. Okay, how about not shaded? If 1/4 is shaded, 3/4 not shaded, brilliant. Fractions and percentages, sorry, decimals and percentages. Let's have a look. There we go. 75% or 0.75. And again, most of these are things you should just start to recognize. Sometimes we get to fractions and decimals and percentages that aren't so common. What's the equivalent here? This one's actually even easier than you'd have thought, because it's 11, isn't it? 11 something. So 0.11, 11 hundredths, and 11%. All right. So sometimes when we can't simplify it, actually it's even easier not to simplify it and find out the equivalence. But if we can simplify the fraction, girls and boys, please simplify the fraction. What about this one? My computer's doing very weird things. I'm going to start this video soon, and then all will be well. There you go. That was 15, wasn't it? 15%, 0.15. Now 3/20. Interesting, because we simplified 15 hundredths. They both divide by 5. 3's into 15. 3's into 15 is 5. 20s into 100 is 5. So they both go in 5 times to the numerator and the denominator. Okay, so they're simplified. You remember how to do these things. Talk to your parents. Say, what is Mr. Snowden talking about? I keep looking at myself, but you're here. It's weird. Anyway, last one, I think. You get it? 90%, 0.9 and 9/10. All right. So today, you're having a go at, oh, there's one more. I didn't like this one because they didn't simplify the fraction. I should have looked at the presentation more carefully, but they didn't simplify it. We could simplify that, couldn't we? What do they both divide by? Well, we know, we just did 15, so we know that 5s go. So it's going to be something 20ths. It's 19/20, just for your information. All right? So here's a few more examples. Which is bigger? So this is what you're thinking about today. We're thinking about, can we compare them? Okay? And you can compare them. Even though one is a fraction, one is a decimal, you could compare them because you can convert them quickly. We know that 2/5 is the same as what? Well, it's 4/10, so it's 0.4. Aha, brilliant. Okay, so it's 0.4. So we know already which is bigger, all right? We could write as fractions, 4/10 and 3/10. So this one's bigger. Or we could write as decimals, 0.4, 0.3. So in any case, we know that this one's bigger. How about these ones? 3/4 and 60%. What would you do? Which would you convert into? Would you convert this one into percentage? I would, if I was you. Or would you convert them both into decimals? That might work as well. Okay, and this one here, 0.25 and 3/10. Interesting. Perhaps this would be good to convert into a decimal. 0.3, is it bigger? It is. Okay, so you should see that this one, 3/4, 75% is bigger than 60%. This one, 3/10, 30% is bigger than 25. 0.25, 25%. So you can convert them into anything you like, but to compare them, you're probably going to need to. Okay, so that's what you're going to do today. You're going to use this equivalence to compare fractions, decimals, and percentages. Tomorrow, you're going to be thinking about prices of things and thinking, okay, if I know that it's 50% off something, then I can take away the half of the amount. All right. So have a go. You might need to talk to your parents a bit about tomorrow and get a bit of help. Hopefully they'll be able to help you, because I'm sure they've all been shopping, and I think the shop sells biscuits, so that's a real bonus. So I hope you enjoyed tomorrow's lesson, and I hope you enjoyed today's work, and have some fun, do some good maths, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Bye.